Good morning and welcome to Elwood City Pulse. My name is Pamela Payne and I'm here with Mayor Ron Arnold.
Good morning, Pam.
Good morning. I heard at the city council meeting that you guys went over more about the animal shelter.
Yes, it was not on the agenda for the council meeting, but we had several residents interested in more information on the shelter. And we had several folks there who were involved in the committee, or who are involved in the committee. So we had a nice conversation about the plans for the shelter. And many folks had said that they had gotten some information off of our last interview on elwoodindiana.org. So I was pleased that folks are plugging in through the website and finding out good information that you and I discuss each week. So I was pleased with that. So we had a good conversation, but there's still folks who don't have all the information, still have questions, and so it would probably be a benefit to the community, Pam, if we talked a little more in depth about the shelter and some of our plans.
Okay.
We're looking at brochures that outline an overall plan for the shelter. It lists the current committee members, which are volunteers from the community and from all different walks of life. You don't have to be a business owner or a community quote-unquote leader. Just love animals and want to be involved in the shelter is the biggest qualification that they're looking for. And then give some contact information. It gives you an opportunity, an ability to donate to the shelter, and there's a form attached, or to volunteer your time for the shelter. And I think that's one of the pieces that folks still aren't understanding. The shelter, Pam, will operate with volunteers. The city has one humane officer through the police department. We'll continue to have a humane officer. But the humane shelter will be operated by this committee and the volunteers that work through the committee. So we won't be hiring a staff of people to work the shelter. It will all be volunteers.
Can you give us kind of an idea of when this Humane Society might start growing? Or
Sure. Our plan is to, as soon as the weather permits, we're going to break ground at the North 14th Street Park, which is connected to the Wilkie Park off Anderson Street by a footbridge. And we have lots of exciting plans for the park, more than just a humane shelter. Behind us here is a layout of. This is a picture of the building. We'll invest approximately $100,000, Pam, on this building. It will be a nice enhancement to the park and to the neighborhood. I know we had some residents initially concerned that we were building a dog pound, place to dump animals. It's not the case. This is a humane shelter. This is a place for animals to be cared for and to be adopted. And so the overall plan for the shelter is not to house a bunch of animals, but to get animals adopted into loving homes. So this here, and I hope Al can zoom in on this so you can see it, but if you can't, this is available in City Hall, and we have plans in the building planning office here in the city, and then Two Guys Pet Boutique also has a copy of the plans, so you could go into their business and look at them also. But the building, as it's originally designed, is going to have an intake area where the animals can be brought in. We'll be able to, we're calling it a groom room, but it's not like you getting your animal groomed for the month or week. Or this is where we're going to take an animal in and get them cleaned before they're put in with any other animals. So it's not a grooming, but it is a cleaning process. We're going to have a nice lobby area for folks to come into and wait to do whatever it is they're doing there. There'll be an office. And then we've got an adoption or a get-to-know room. Much like when you go into a pet store, you have an area where you go and they bring you the animal and you can get acquainted with it, see how the animal reacts to you. Do you bond? Do the kids like it? Does it seem to have the personality that you're looking for in an animal? So we'll have a room there, or get-to-know or adoption room. On this end of the building, we'll have a room just for cats, and there will be cages and a facility available to house as many as 39 cats. Again, we don't plan to house 39 cats on a daily basis in the shelter, but should there be a litter of cats brought in, something we're able to hold them until we can get them adopted out, get them to other humane societies that are larger than we are, to rescue groups that help place animals. On down this hall, we have a quarantine room for cats. So as they're brought in, they're cleaned, and then they're taken into this room and they're checked before they're put in with other cats. So if they have some problem, you don't spread it amongst the other animals. As you go down there, there's an area to store their food and supplies, and then you go to the end and you have the dog room, the quarantine room, where you're going to take dogs, check them out again if they have any problems before you take them into the general population with any other dogs. Then you have a room to hold as many as 30 dogs. But again, I make the point, our intent at the Humane Shelter is not to house a bunch of animals. Our committee has worked and is working still to form relationships, Pam, with rescue groups, Howard County Humane Society, Hamilton County Humane Society, Madison County, on and on. All those around us that are larger have been in operation longer. And so there will be a nice network of folks who are in the business of caring for animals and getting them adopted out that we will plug into, that we've never been able to before. We haven't had the facility, we haven't had the volunteer structure, we haven't had the opportunity to really offer to partner with any other humane society. And so that's one of the most exciting components, is now we'll have a facility where we can be a conduit, if you will, to other larger humane society and rescue groups. Over beside you, Pam, is a layout, a little bigger layout of the area. To the south of this shelter, there's parking, and then what's not shown here is there will be a small dog park. That will be a fenced area where you can take your pet, walk them, be in a fenced area. So they're not going to be, you're not going to be, there's not a liability for them to get loose, interact with kids if that's not what they want to do. A lot of folks don't understand, Pam, that at Callaway Park, pets aren't allowed. You see pets in Callaway Park, but by park code and city ordinance, they're not allowed. So we're going to create an actual dog park that's a fenced area that you can bring your pet and walk them, be with other dogs, and meet other animal lovers and owners. The rest of 14th Street Park, the other exciting part of this project is we're going to revitalize the 14th Street Park. And some folks in our community may not recognize the park by that name. If you say that's the old Little League field, the old Harry Bridges Little League field, then a lot of folks say, oh, okay, I remember that, by the water tower. That is now the 14th Street Park. It has, if you go by it now, you'll understand what I'm describing, but it's a blighted area. The field is not used a little bit for some teams to do practice, but it's not in a condition to be used for baseball or for soccer. The concession stand that was there in years past for the Little League, that building is in disrepair. The playground equipment that we have there needs to be painted and upgraded. And so we're going to relocate the playground equipment to the other end of the park by the playing field and build a small shelter house out from the playing field for families to gather. And if you have kids playing, they can gather there, get out from under the sun in that area. And then we'll also have another parking area on the other end of the park. So if you're coming in for soccer or some park activity, you don't have to necessarily park here at the Humane Shelter and in the dog park area. You can park down at the other end. So when we're done, the whole park will be revitalized. That neighborhood will see an investment of more than $100,000 in that area. And people are concerned about property values. Our plan is to increase property values. If we have a more efficiently used park where we're bringing families and pet owners into it, and it's well maintained, you have nice structures, you have good use, that is not only good for our community, but it is great news for that neighborhood. And our plan, I am fully convinced, will do nothing but increase property values in that area.
I understand you brought this in front of the park board.
Yes, to get approval for the use of the humane shelter in the dog park in a city park. We brought our plan to the park board. It was approved unanimously by the park board for this use. I personally have been door to door on 14th Street. Anyone who is immediately facing 14th Street Park, I've knocked on their door. I've spoken to most of them. A few folks weren't home, but I felt it important that I went out with these brochures with a copy of the plans so that we can engage in a one-on-one conversation about exactly what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish. Because folks get nervous. You're in their neighborhood. You're doing something different. And they're worried about property values. They're worried about crime. They're worried about who's coming and going. They're worried about noise, which is another point. One of the gentlemen that lives in the area, he lives right across from the park, is Joey Martin. And he has Martin Drafting and Design has done all of the work of laying this park out and designing this humane shelter. And so one of the things he's very proud of is the baffling or the noise reduction that's going to be put in the walls of the building. Mm-hmm. And he assured us and the park board that you will hear less noise outside of this building with any animals that may be in it than a normal home would hear with just a dog barking. And so, he's an affected neighbor of the park. So we're very confident he's going to be sure that there's noise protection there. So the good news is, as I went door to door, most everyone on 14th Street are animal lovers. So almost everyone had a pet. And after they learned the details of it, they became very excited that would be part of their neighborhood. And so at the council meeting, we had a lot of excited folks that are looking forward to another improvement to the city.
If someone wants to support and help with this, how would they do so? Who should they contact?
They can contact my office and talk to Stacy at 552-5076. 552-5076. Stacy can get you information on how to talk to Two Guys Pet Boutique, any other member of the committee, talk to our park superintendent, whoever they may have a question for or want to plug in with. Stacy will get them connected. She can also get you a brochure like I'm holding that will give you a form that you can fill out so that you can volunteer or that you can donate financially.
Now we have another question. On 28, right there at 16th Street, we've noticed that since the water main broke, Indiana has come in and repaired it, but it's not completely finished. Can you tell me the plans on that being finished, or how will it go?
Yes. Please know that is not the permanent repair of 28 or Main Street. So if you're concerned, I understand. I would be too if I was driving down that road and I wasn't the mayor and didn't know what the plan was. This time of year, the asphalt plants are not open. So that's why we don't pave roads, this time of year. You can't get the material. And so what NDOT did, their first priority was to get the road open, so that commerce can continue and people can get where they need to go without detours and delays. And so so that's what you see now. They've come in, they've graded it, filled it so that it's ready to be asphalted. It can't be, the plants don't open for about another month. So it's going to be 4, maybe 6 weeks before NDOT comes back and actually finishes the road. So this is temporary. We will have asphalt back on Main Street. The good news, the thing that I want to make sure everyone understands is we stood toe-to-toe with NDOT. We made a call to the Governor Pence's office because in the beginning, I, as your mayor, and the city of Elwood was being asked to pay for the repairs to the road. We're not going to pay for those repairs. That's a state highway, and we stood our ground and made our case, and through assistance with the governor's office and our local NDOT person who lives in Elwood, he was very instrumental in helping us. NDOT has agreed to fix their state highway. So I was very pleased that we're not going to have to take precious dollars that we use to pave city roads to fix a state highway. So what you see now is permanent, or is temporary. There is asphalt coming that will make it permanent. By the time we kick off summer and everything's going, there's going to be asphalt back in that section, and there'll be some green grass. There'll be an addition of some green grass where the building that we took down just west of that intersection at 16th and Main, and so that area will be completed as well. So we're going to have erased some blight and have a nice repair to the road.
Now, as you know, we do a section each week on questions
Yes.
from people on the computer. There has been a question raised about the Elwood school system going to year-round school. Have you heard anything about that? If so, can you please explain to us what it is and how it works?
I have. I'll do my best to do that. I've had good communication with the interim superintendent, Tom Austin, and some folks on the school board. I attended. I have two boys that will be freshmen next year. So I was at a freshman orientation just last night. So, and they went over the calendar. The way I understand it, and the city doesn't have any influence over the schedule. We had no, it wasn't our bailiwick to decide that it happened or didn't happen, or to design it. But my understanding as a parent with kids in the school system is that it will be a basically 2-week earlier start to school. School will still get out at the same time as it normally does at the end of May, and then they'll go 9 weeks, and they'll have 2 weeks off. Sometime in October they'll have 2 weeks off. They'll go another 9 weeks. They'll have their normal 2-week Christmas break. Then they'll go about 10 weeks, and instead of 1 week of spring break, the kids will have 2 weeks of spring break. And then they'll go on to the end of May like normal and be out from the end of May. The first day of school is July 31st. Is what we were told last night.
Okay.
So it's basically a 2-week earlier start, which leads me into another point, if I can make it while answering that question. It will change our pool schedule. And so we will have a shorter pool season, but we're going to expand the hours. We're going to have 2 sessions. We'll have an afternoon session and an evening session, each 4 hours long. So basically 1 to 5 and 6 to 10. So we'll have 2 sessions each day instead of 1 like last year, but it will be a shorter session. We'll end somewhere at the end of July, right before the kids go back to school. And so it will alter our pool schedule a bit, but we're going to expand the hours. So I think everyone will be pleased with the increased access in the daytime or throughout the day that we didn't have in our first year last year. So I'm excited about it. I think it's we'll see how it goes, and I know many other school systems have adopted this, and it didn't sound last night as they outlined what I just told you, it didn't sound as onerous as what you may first think.
Now, if anyone has any questions or concerns about the information that we've provided for them today as far as the year-round school, who would they get in contact with?
I would encourage them to call the superintendent's office for the Elwood Community Schools. Stacy will have that number again. If you want to call my office at 552-5076, Stacy can give them that number to the superintendent's office. But I would go directly to the administrative office and lodge any inquiry that they have with them.
I thank you very much for talking with us today.
Thank you.
And we will see you next week.
Look forward to it. Thanks,
Thank
Pam.
you.